Oh my God. Thanks, YouTube. Listen, I do it every time. But thank you for telling me. And here's the good news, we're going to do it again. Have you ever had a prayer answered? What wouldn't men give just to feel certain that when they pray, something definite would happen? You see, for this reason, I would like to take a little time to see why it is that some prayers are answered and some apparently fall on dry ground. When ye pray, believe that ye receive, and ye shall receive. Believe that ye receive is the condition imposed upon man. Unless we believe that we receive, well, our prayer will not be answered. Why? Let me slide in here. Why? Unless we believe that we receive, our prayer will not be answered. Why? Because the principle of correspondence says, as within, so without. If you hold the belief within that the prayer is answered, well, then you must see the evidence of the answered prayer on the outside, because the principle tells you, as within, so without. But if you have the doubt within that this is not possible, well, what's within? The doubt. So what can you expect to have on the outside? The proof of your doubt. But I digress. Let us carry on. A prayer granted, a prayer granted implies that something is done in consequence of the prayer, which otherwise would not have been done. Therefore, the one who prays is the spring of action, the directing mind, and the one who grants the prayer. The one who prays is the spring of action, the directing mind, and the one who grants the prayer. So you are one in three. You are the one who prays, you are the directing mind, and you are the one who grants the prayer. As within, so without. Anyway, I'm getting excited. Let me breathe. Therefore, such responsibility man refuses to assume. For responsibility, it seems, is mankind's invisible nightmare. Did you get that? Responsibility man refuses to assume. For responsibility, it seems, is mankind's invisible nightmare. The whole natural world is built on law. Yet, between prayer and its answer, we see no such relation. We feel that God may answer or ignore our prayer, that our prayer may hit the mark or may miss it. The mind is still unwilling to admit that God subjects himself to his own laws. How many people believe that there is between prayer and its answer a relation of cause and effect? Hmm? Let us take a look at the means employed to heal the 10 lepers, as related in the 17th chapter of the Gospel of St. Luke. Let me slide in here. Listen, when I read scripture or I tell you scripture from memory, I'm not saying it to you to try and make you believe in Jesus. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying to you is, in scripture is the law. The law has been hidden in scripture, right? The law has been hidden in the scripture. But because we get so caught up and say, oh, that's the Bible, that's not even true, the church is so corrupt, you miss. You miss the principles, you miss the law hidden in the word. Read the Bible to see the principles so you can apply them. So here's the story of the 10 lepers. And you can see, if you listen, you'll hear the law. The thing that strikes us in this story is the method that was used to raise their faith to the needful intensity. We are told that the 10 lepers appealed to Jesus to have mercy on them, that is, to heal them. And Jesus ordered them to go and show themselves to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. So they were like, Jesus, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. Because if you know anything about leprosy, bits and pieces begin to fall off. But I digress. So they wanted mercy. And so Jesus said, okay, go and show yourself to the priest. As they were on their way, they were healed. All he said was, go and show yourself to the priest. Now let's get back to the story. The Mosaic law demanded that when a leper recovered from his disease, he must show himself to the priest to obtain a certificate of restored health. Jesus imposed a test upon the lepers' faith and supplied a means by which their faith could be raised to its full potency. Cyber. If the lepers refused to go, but they had no faith and therefore could not be healed. But if they obeyed him, the full realization of what their journey implied would break upon their minds as they went, and this dynamic thought would heal them. Ashton, thank you for subscribing. I trust that you will find it of great benefit to you as you apply these principles to your everyday life. So you see what happened. They said, have mercy on us, Jesus. And he said, okay, go show yourself to the priest. Remember, when you showed yourself to the priest had to write a certificate to say, oh, look, he's got leprosy no more. He's healed. So because they obeyed and went to see the priest, they were healed, not by magic, but because they believed what he said. Go, show yourself to the priest. Remember the scripture. Whatsoever you ask for in prayer, if you believe, well, it'll be done for you. So they believed what they heard, thus they were healed as they were walking to the priest. I'm excited. Let me calm myself. You no doubt often have heard the words of that inspiring old hymn. Oh, what a peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. That's a hymn. I used to sing that in church. We hear that hymn all the time. And he says, well, I myself, Neville said, I myself came to this conviction through experience, being led to brood upon the nature of prayer. I believe in the practice and philosophy of what men call prayer, but not everything that receives that name is really prayer. How so? Prayer is the elevation of the mind to that which we seek. Prayer is the elevation of the mind to that which we seek. The very first word of correction is always arise. Arise. Always lift the mind to that which we seek. Well, how do we lift our mind? This is easily done by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Well, how? How would you feel if your prayer were answered? How would you feel if your prayer were answered? Well, assume that feeling until you experience in imagination what you would experience in reality if your prayer were answered. I have to highlight it because I'm going to read it again. I'm highlighting, don't panic. Highlight. Put it in purple. So, how would you feel if your prayer were answered? Well, assume that feeling until you experience in imagination what you would experience in reality if your prayer were answered. Go show yourself to the priest. Oh, prayer means getting into action mentally. What does prayer mean? Prayer means getting into action mentally. It means holding the attention upon the idea of the wish fulfilled until it fills the mind and crowds all other ideas out of the consciousness. Again, prayer means holding the attention upon the idea of the wish fulfilled until it fills the mind and crowds all other ideas out of the consciousness. This statement that prayer means getting into action mentally and holding the attention upon the idea of the wish fulfilled until it fills the mind and crowds all other ideas out of the consciousness does not mean that prayer is a mental effort or an act of will. Au contraire, prayer is to be contrasted with the act of will. The will is the effort. Prayer, no effort. How? Well, listen. Prayer is a surrender. It means abandoning oneself to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If prayer brings no response, there is something wrong with the prayer, and the fault lies generally in too much effort. Serious confusion arises insofar as men identify the state of prayer with an act of will instead of contrasting it with an act of will. Contrast. The sovereign rule is to make no effort. And if this is observed, you will intuitively fall into the right attitude. Creativeness is not an act of will, but a deeper receptiveness, a keener susceptibility. The acceptance of the end, the acceptance of the answered prayer finds the means for its realization. Feel yourself into the state of the answered prayer until the state fills the mind and crowds all other states out of your consciousness. In other words, become single minded. What we must work for is not the development of the will, but the education of the imagination and the steadying of attention. Again, so you don't work to develop your willpower. What do you do instead? Educate the imagination and steady the attention. Prayer succeeds by avoiding conflict. Prayer is, above all things, easy. Its greatest enemy is effort. Oh, shh, don't be growling to me. The mighty surrenders itself fully only to that which is most gentle. Hmm? The mighty surrenders itself fully only to that which is most gentle. The wealth of heaven may not be seized by a strong will, but surrenders itself a free gift to the God spent moment. Along the lines of least resistance, travel spiritual as well as physical forces. We know this is Physics 101, isn't it? We must act on the assumption that we already possess that which we desire. For all that we desire is already present within us. It only waits to be claimed. That it must be claimed is a necessary condition by which we realize our desires. Our prayers are answered if we assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue in that assumption. Now, one of the loveliest examples of an answered prayer I witnessed in my own living room. A very charming lady from out of town came to see me concerning prayer. She had no one with whom to leave her 8-year-old son, so she brought him with her in the time of our interview, and seemingly he was engrossed in playing with a toy truck. But at the end of the interview with his mother, he said, "Mr. Neville, I know how to pray now. I know what I want, a collie puppy. And I can imagine I am hugging him every night on my bed." His mother explained to him and to me the impossibilities of his prayer, the cost of the puppy, their confined home, even his inability to care for the dog properly. The boy looked into his mother's eyes and simply said, "But, mother, I know how to pray now." And he did. 2 months later, during a Kindness to Animals Week in his city, all the school children were required to write an essay on how they would love and care for a pet. Well, you have guessed the answer. His essay, out of the 5,000 submitted, won the prize. And that prize, presented by the mayor of the city to this little boy, a collie puppy. The boy truly assumed the feeling of his wish fulfilled, hugging and loving his puppy every night. Prayer is an act of imaginative love, which is to be the subject of my message, he says. This is his upcoming message. That's what he will call it, imaginative love. He says, so that he can explain to you how you, like the young boy, can yield yourselves to the lovely images of your desires and persist in your prayer, even though you, like the lad, are told that your desires are impossible. The necessity of persistence in prayer is shown us in the Bible. "Which of you," asked Jesus, "shall go unto him at midnight and say unto him, O friend, lend me 3 loaves? For a friend of mine is come in for a journey, and I have nothing to set before him. And he from within shall answer and say, Ah, trouble me not. The door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give thee anything. I say unto you, though he will not rise and give him because he is his friend, he will rise because of the importunity. He will arise and give as many as he needeth." Luke chapter 2. Why? The word translated as importunity means literally shameless impudence. We must persist until we succeed in imagining ourselves into the situation of the answered prayer. The secret of success is found in the word perseverance. The soul, imagining itself into the act, takes on the results of the act. Again, the soul, you and me, hmm, imagining ourselves into the act, take on the results of the act. Not imagining itself into the act, it is free of the result. Hmm? Experience in imagination what you would experience in reality were you already what you want to be, and you will take on the result of that act. Do not experience in imagination what you want to experience in reality, and you will ever be free of the result. As within, so without. Then ye pray. Believe that ye receive, and ye shall receive. One must persist until he reaches his friend on a higher level of consciousness. He must persist until his feeling of the wish fulfilled has all the sensory vividness of reality. How so? Remember a while back that lecture that says it is the frequency that makes something real. Not frequency as in measurement of intensity, but frequency as in how many times do you do it? It is how many times you do something that makes it natural to you. Natural meaning you can do it with your eyes closed. That's what it means to do something naturally. But how did you get to do that thing with your eyes closed? By persistently doing it, frequently doing it. So you see, it's nothing mystical. You are already doing it. You know as well as I do. Anytime you hear somebody say, "Oh man, I could do that with my eyes closed. I know this thing like the back of my hand." Because you've done it how many times? Here's a phrase: we've done it ad nauseum. Means you've done it so much you want to vomit because you've done it so much. It's real to you. That's what it means by tones of reality, vividness. You just do it, but do it where? Here, in your mind's eye. So if you catch yourself, you will realize that you do this already. You do it already. Hmm. Prayer is a controlled waking dream. If we are to pray successfully, we must steady our attention to observe the world as it would be seen by us were our prayer answered. So, how would you see the world if you were what you wanted to be? Good. Persistently see it that way now. Frequently see it that way now until it becomes like the back of your hand, meaning you've been that way forever. I digress. Steadying attention makes no call upon any special faculty, but it does demand control of imagination. We must extend our senses, observe our changed relationship to our world, and trust this observation. The new world is not there to grasp, but to sense, to touch. What? The new world is not there to grasp. I'm grasping my file. It's not there to grasp, but it is to sense it, to touch. The visually impaired will tell you they can sense things. To sense something means to feel it. You feel it in the undercurrent. Kind of like you can feel evil when it lurks in the space, or you could feel something heavenly when it is in the space. You understand? So that's what he means when he says that. The best way to observe it is to be intensely aware of it. In other words, we can, by listening as though we heard, and by looking as though we saw, actually hear voices and see scenes from within ourselves that are otherwise not audible or visible. With our attention focused on the state desired, the outer world crumbles, and then the world, like music, by a new setting, turns all its discords into harmonies. Life is not a struggle, but a surrender. Life is not a struggle, but a surrender. Our prayers are answered by the powers we invoke, not by those we exert. Say it again. Our prayers are answered by the powers we invoke, not by those we exert. To exert is to push against. Invoke, call it up from within. Invoke. Exert means outside of you, but so long as the eyes take notice, the soul is blind. For the world that moves us is the one we imagine, not the world round about us. How so, Angela? How so? Well, let me slide in here. If you walk into a room and you are not confident, perhaps you're shy, you know, timid, the world that moves us is the one we imagine. So if you walk into that room and you are shy and reserved, what do you think you will be moved to do? Be the wallflower, hang out by the punch bowl, stay in the corner in the shadows, because you don't want to be there. But what if you were bold? The world that moves us is the one we imagine. So if you are bold because you say here, well, I am bold, and you walk into that room, you're going to command the space. What moved you to command the space? Your belief in the fact that you're bold. So you see, the world that moves us is the one we imagine, not the world round about us. We must yield our whole being to the feeling of being the noble one we want to be. If anything is kept back, the prayer is vain. You're so vain. Sorry. We often are deprived of our high goal by our effort to possess it. Listen to it. See if you can grasp what it means. We often are deprived of our high goal by our effort to possess it. Remember, imagination is effortless. Hmm. We are called upon to act on the assumption that we already are the man we would be. If we do this without effort, experiencing in imagination what we would experience in the flesh had we realized our goal, well, we shall find that we do indeed possess it. The healing touch is in our attitude. We need change nothing but our attitude towards it. Assume a virtue if you have it not. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Pray for my soul, more things are wrought by prayer than this world of dreams, or that this world dreams of. Now we will read meditation. This is the second one from his radio talk station that we're going to read tonight. Again, July 1951. Many people tell me they cannot meditate. Well, this seems to me a bit like saying they cannot play the piano after one attempt. Meditation, as in every art or expression, requires constant practice for perfect results. Didn't we just hear that in a different sentence? It is the frequency that makes something natural, right? So, meditation to be natural to you, you gotta do it and do it and do it until you can do it with your eyes closed. Right? So this is what he's saying. A truly great pianist, for instance, would feel he could not play his best if he missed one day of practice. If he missed a week or a month of practice, he would know that even the most uninitiated audience would recognize his defects. So it is with meditation. If we practice daily with joy in this daily habit, we perfect it as an art. I find that those who complain of the difficulty in meditation do not make it a daily practice, but rather, wait until something pressing appears in their world and then, through an act of will, try to fix their attention on the desired state. But they do not know that meditation is the education of the will. For when will and imagination are in conflict, imagination invariably wins. I'll say that again. They do not know that meditation is the education of the will. For when will and imagination are in conflict, imagination invariably wins. The dictionaries define meditation as fixing one's attention upon, as planning in the mind, as devising and looking forward, engaging in continuous and contemplative thought. A lot of nonsense has been written about meditation. Most books on the subject get the reader nowhere, for they do not explain the process of meditation. All that meditation amounts to is a controlled imagination and a well sustained attention. Simply hold the attention on a certain idea until it fills the mind and crowds all other ideas out of consciousness. The power of attention shows itself the sure guarantee of an inner force. The power of attention shows itself the sure guarantee of an inner force. We must concentrate on the idea to be realized without permitting any distraction. But this is the great secret of action. Should the attention wander, bring it back to the idea you wish to realize and do so again and again until the attention becomes immobilized and undergoes an effortless fixation upon the idea presented to it. The idea must hold the attention, must fascinate it, so to speak. Oh, remember, I told you what he said in the last lecture. Make this thing pleasurable. That's why he says the idea must hold the attention, must fascinate it, so to speak. All meditation ends at last with the thinker, and he finds he is what he himself has conceived. The undisciplined man's attention is the servant of his vision rather than its master. It is captured by the pressing rather than the important. You know exactly what that means. The undisciplined man's attention is the servant of his vision rather than its master. It is captured by the pressing rather than the important. In the act of meditation, as in the act of adoration, silence is our highest praise. Let us keep our silent sanctuaries, for in them the eternal perspectives are preserved. Day by day, week by week, year by year, at times where none through love or lesser intentions were allowed to interfere. I set myself to attain mastery over my attention and imagination. I sought out ways to make more securely my own those magical lights that dawned and faded within me. I wished to evoke them at will and to be the master of my vision. I would strive to hold my attention on the activities of the day in unwavering concentration, so that not for one moment would the concentration slacken. This is an exercise, a training for higher adventures of the soul. It is no light labor. The plowman's labor working in the fields is easier by far. Empires do not send legions so swiftly to obstruct revolt as all that is alive in us hurries along the nerve highways of the body to frustrate our meditative mood. Did you understand that? Let me say it again slower. Empires do not send legions so swiftly to obstruct revolt as all that is alive in us hurries along the nerve highway of the body to frustrate our meditative mood. In other words, the moment you sit still and you say, I'm going to meditate, you start thinking, is the laundry done? Is the stove on? Did I start the car? Did I feed the cat? Did I play with the baby? Did I pay my bills? dance at a picnic. That's what happens. The beautiful face of one we love glows before us to enchant us from our task. Old enmities and fears beleaguer us. If we are tempted down these vistas, we find after an hour of musing that we have been lured away. We have deserted our task and forgotten that fixity of attention we set out to achieve. What man is there who has complete control of his imagination and attention? A controlled imagination and steadied attention, firmly and repeatedly focused on the idea to be realized, is the beginning of all magical operations. If he persists through weeks and months, or sooner or later through meditation, he creates in himself a center of power. He will enter a path all may travel, but on which few do journey. It is a path within himself where the feet first falter in shadow and darkness, but which later is made brilliant by an inner light. What's that mean? It means in the beginning, the mind wanders away a lot. But through our persistence, we do what? Develop our steadied attention, right? There's no need for special gifts or genius. It is not bestowed on any individual, but won by persistence and practice of meditation. If he persists, the dark caverns of his brain will grow luminous, and he will set out day after day for the hour of meditation, as if to keep an appointment with a lover. When it comes, he rises within himself as a diver, too long deep underwater, rises to breathe the air and see the light. In this meditative mood, he experiences in imagination what he would experience in reality had he realized his goal, that he may in time become transformed into the image of his imagined state. The only test of religion worth making is whether it is true born, whether it springs from the deepest consciousness of the individual, whether it is the fruit of experience, or whether it is anything else, whatever. Well, this is my reason for speaking to you, he says, about the true religious attitude. What is your religious attitude? What is my religious attitude? Right? He says, I shall endeavor to show you that the methods of mental and spiritual knowledge are entirely different. Mental. So, methods of mental and spiritual knowledge are entirely different. For we know a thing mentally by looking at it from outside, by comparing it with other things, by analyzing and defining it. Whereas we can know a thing spiritually only by becoming it. We must be the thing itself and not merely talk about it or look at it. We must be in love if we are to know what love is. We must be God-like if we are to know what God is. Meditation, like sleep, is an entrance into the subconscious. Oh, I have to say that again. Wait. We must be the thing itself and not merely talk about it or look at it. We must be in love if we are to know what love is. We must be God-like if we are to know what God is. Meditation, like sleep, is an entrance into the subconscious. Then you pray, enter into your closet, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father which is in secret, and your Father which is in secret shall reward you openly. Oh, Angela, that sounds like the principle of correspondence. I was in the closet. secretly praying, and then bam, that thing I was secretly praying about on the inside, ta-da, there it is on the outside, as within, so without. I digress. Meditation is an illusion of sleep, which diminishes the impression of the outer world and renders the mind more receptive to suggestion from within. The mind in meditation is in a state of relaxation akin to the feeling attained just before dropping off to sleep. This state is beautifully described by the poet Keats in his Ode to a Nightingale. It is said that as the poet sat in the garden and listened to the nightingale, he fell into a state which he described as a drowsy numbness pains my senses, as though of hemlock I had drunk. Then, after singing his ode to the nightingale, Keats asked himself this question: was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is the music, do I wake or sleep? Those are the words of one who has seen something with such vividness or reality that he wonders whether the evidence of his physical eyes can now be believed. Any kind of meditation in which we withdraw into ourselves without making too much effort to think is an outcropping of the subconscious. Think of the subconscious as a tide which ebbs and flows. In sleep, it is a flood tide, while at moments of full wakefulness, the tide is at its lowest ebb. Between these two extremes are any number of intermediary levels. When we are drowsy, dreamy, lulled in gentle reverie, the tide is high. The more wakeful and alert we become, the lower the tide sinks. The highest tide compatible with the conscious direction of our thoughts occurs just before we fall asleep and just after we wake. The highest tide compatible with the conscious direction of our thoughts occurs just before we fall asleep and just after we wake. An easy way to create this passive state is to relax in a comfortable chair or on a bed. Close your eyes and imagine that you are sleepy. So sleepy. So very sleepy. Act precisely as though you were going to take a siesta. In doing so, you allow the subconscious tide to rise to sufficient height to make your particular assumption effective. When you first attempt this, you may find that all sorts of counter thoughts try to distract you. But if you persist, you will achieve a passive state. When this passive state is reached, think only on things of good report. Imagine that you are now expressing your highest ideal, not how you will express it, but simply feel here and now that you are the noble one you desire to be. You are it now. Call your high ideal into being by imagining and feeling you are it now. I think all happiness depends on the energy to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to assume the mask of some more perfect life. If we cannot imagine ourselves different from what we are and try to assume that second, more desirable self, we cannot impose a discipline upon ourselves, though we may accept discipline from others. Oh, if we cannot imagine ourselves different from what we are and try to assume that second, more desirable self, we cannot impose a discipline upon ourselves, though we may accept discipline from others. Meditation is an activity of the soul. It is an active virtue. And an active virtue, as distinguished from passive acceptance of a code, is theatrical. It is dramatic. It is the wearing of a mask. As your goal is accepted, you become totally indifferent to possible failure. For acceptance of the end wills the means to the end. And when you emerge from the moment of meditation, it is as though you were shown the happy end of a play in which you are the principal actor. And having witnessed the end in your meditation, regardless of any anticlimactic state you encounter, you remain calm and secure in the knowledge that the end has been perfectly defined. Creation is finished. And what we call creativeness is really only a deeper receptiveness or keener susceptibility on our part. And this receptiveness is not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. Through meditation, we awaken within ourselves a center of light, which will be to us a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. So tonight, my beautiful friends, I trust that those two radio lectures by Neville Goddard, I will make some shorts out of these, of course, but go back and listen to it again. Because truthfully, like I started off saying before I realized I was muted on YouTube, that my day was kind of tough. And because I had to post a short, I heard the short before I posted it. And wouldn't you know what I heard lifted my spirit and totally changed my mood? Yeah. So we will be starting a meditation. Oh, yes, a silent one, but we'll be starting one. I may play the chimes in it where we just simply meet and meditate. You do the same thing the same way, same amount of time. You form a habit because why? It is the frequency of something that makes it natural. So that's what we'll do because sometimes we struggle to do it by ourselves. But what if we did it as a group? Hmm? Well, it's not going to be guided. You don't need to be guided. You already have the instructions. So tonight, as we play the chime for a moment, the nighttime chime, one of these things stuck out to you the most. Through meditation, we awaken within ourselves a center of light, which will be to us as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. So we have 5 minutes of silence. What are you going to do in those silence? Those silent 5 minutes? Well, let's go back and see what I highlighted. There's many things I highlighted. Prayer is above all things easy. Its greatest enemy is effort. The mighty surrenders itself fully only to that which is most gentle. So, as we slide into those 5 minutes, there's an eagerness we have when we meet someone, a good friend. There's an excitement. I'm always eager to get home to play with my rooster, really. Hey, Ashton. I'm always eager to get home and play with my rooster. It brings me such joy to do that. So he's telling you when you meditate, don't see it as a chore. Don't see it as something hard. Be prepared to know that in the very beginning, it's like ants at a picnic. Your mind is here, there, and everywhere. But if you persist in refocusing the mind, what will you do? You will awaken within yourself a center of light, which will be to you a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Let us slide into the silence for 5 minutes where you just breathe for 5 minutes. See if you can just simply focus on the inhale and exhale for 5 minutes. And there you have it, our 5 minutes of silence. I trust that these 2 lectures were helpful for you tonight, and you will go back and listen to them and apply. If ever you have more questions or comments, you can slide into my DMs on any of these platforms: Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Fanbase, and I'll respond. Yes? All right, my beautiful friends. Rest well tonight. And what you gonna do? Practice meditation. I'll hurry up and get it sorted out so we can start practicing. I'm just trying to figure out what day of the week, because it's a commitment, right? And so I have to be also willing and able to commit to it, right? So I'll see. You guys can slide into my DMs and let me know if you want to do it daily, or if you want to have it recorded and you just listen on your own. Let me know so that we're all on the same page. Yes? So um countdown initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good night, y'all.